To midwives and student midwives, what is your favourite part of being a midwife and why? And what's the hardest challenges within your job? After having a week off and just a chance just to breathe again, I have reminded myself about why I'm doing the job that I'm doing, and I feel so much more positive going in. And as always, I start reflecting on the things that I've loved most in the jobs that I've undertaken, and also the challenges. And with each job that I've ever undertaken, there have been highs and there have been complete lows. And yes, the lows have been incredibly low when you're thinking anxiety, depression, medication, and not great coping strategies. I'm forever indebted to my employer for staff support at those times, but also to the NHS for trauma-based CBT, and also to my incredible colleagues who helped me through those times. But midwives typically don't go into the NHS to become a midwife because they want to earn shed loads of money. That is not why we go through it. We go through it to support women. And in each job I've ever had, I've had real amazing moments that I have absolutely loved that has kept me coming back for more. My favourite place to ever work was in the birth centre, and for me, my absolute highs and the reason I did it is supporting a woman through labour, whatever that labour looked like, listening to her and then catching her baby at the end, or getting her to catch her baby or her partner. And seeing those faces as they meet their baby for the first time, there is nothing more amazing than that. And the same within delivery suite or birth centre. For me, it's also that first feed, which doesn't have to be breast. What I love is that skin to skin contact, and that mum at that point, by the time that she is usually feeding her baby, things have settled, things have calmed. This is that calm after that huge emotion of whatever labour and birth has brought them. And there's just this moment of absolute calmness where they are looking down at their baby, either with a bottle or a breast in their mouth, and it's just magical. There is absolutely nothing like that moment, and being able to witness that is something truly incredible. It's that real, oh my word, we're parents and look at what's happening. I always feel a bit of a sense of achievement when a woman really wants to breastfeed, for example, maybe couldn't in the last pregnancy, or in the last baby that they had, for example, or for example was just really anxious and really worried that their baby wouldn't latch for whatever reason. And then when their baby latches, they're like, oh my God, baby's latching, they're actually on. And okay, there might then still be challenges and things like that, but for that moment, they're like, oh my God, this is a success for me. This is something that I really want to do and have been able to do. And it's just a part of the job that I think there aren't many people who get to watch this in real motion. And they really have that time to get to know their baby at that time. Again, doesn't matter how they're feeding, but they've got that chance to just really interact, really bond with their baby and really be present in that moment. And in community, my real highs was being able to see someone at home postnatally with their baby, settling in, listening to their birth, whatever happened, and knowing that I had looked after them that entire pregnancy. I loved community in the sense of I would even tell women when I was going on annual leave and ask them, as long as it wasn't an urgent appointment, to either book just before I went on annual leave or just after. Of course, for things like stretch and sweeps or for booking inductions or sort of that 40-week appointment, I used to work really closely with my job share, who I absolutely loved and is now an independent midwife. And we used to work really closely together. And I have to say, every job share I've ever had has been absolutely fantastic. I've been so lucky to have the best job share partners in all of the job roles I've done. And so lucky to be afforded part-time work as well and to be able to job share. In my fetal surveillance role, in my specialist role, I loved the projects. I loved being able to see real on-the-ground outcomes once those projects were delivered. They were always really challenging because projects take months and sometimes years. One of the projects I had left had started in 2020 and came in when I was on maternity leave in 2023. The other project actually only came in last year by the person who I was job sharing with and handed over to. And that was started in 2020. Some are quick, some take a long time because of all the processes that you have to go through. And this week in my managerial role, the things that were meant to happen months ago that got delayed for a variety of reasons are finally starting to happen. Yes, they are challenging. They are not easy by any means. But oh my word, those projects are finally happening, and it's going to really benefit women, patients, families, birthing people, the staff in the long run. And that in itself is what I'm loving, because actually as part of a team, it's not just me. There's a whole team of people who are implementing all these changes, top to bottom. These changes are finally happening, and to be part of that is amazing. And I think the continuous low and challenge in all of these roles, whether I've been sort of birth centre, delivery suite wards, whatever it is, has always been the workload. I don't think there's ever been a role or a job where I've thought, oh, this workload is incredibly manageable. I think being a ward manager is definitely the heaviest workload I've ever had. But the workload has always been a challenge wherever you are. In wards, I started where I was 1 to 11 women, for example. That thankfully has come down, although babies are still not included in your acuity figures or your patient ratios for postnatal women. And so some wards are still like 1 to 20, 1 to 22, 1 to 24, depending on where you are in the country. In the birth centre, I would have nights where maybe between two of us, we would have had 6 or 7 labourers in overnight and had probably 2 or 3 babies each in a night, which meant that you were literally going from room to room. That has improved. Can I just point out that has improved over time? No, it's not always perfect, but it has got better. And that's because of the mandated one-to-one care in labour that came in a few years ago. There is always the emotional toll as a midwife, and particularly if you've had poor outcomes or experiences where things haven't gone quite so well, that trauma that exists within that room also impacts on the midwives themselves. And that emotional aspect massively takes over your entire life when that happens. I think the other aspect is the fact that when you are a midwife, you're going to do the best that you can, and you can't always do that. You do your absolute best in the system that you are working within, in the pressures and the constraints and the resources that you have available. And sometimes it's not as good as what you would like it to be. I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist, but I really strive to give 110% of myself. And sometimes that's not always possible within the systems that we work in. And so you go away reflecting and thinking, I wish I'd done a better job. I wish I'd said something different. I wish I hadn't been under so much pressure, that I hadn't listened as well as I should have. And it becomes really difficult because you have to accept sometimes that the version of yourself as a midwife isn't the one that you necessarily set out to be because of what you are working within. And that in itself is hugely draining and massively impactful on your mental well-being and health, and also your ability of staying in the NHS and retaining yourself as a midwife. I still don't think there's a shift even now in my role where I don't go home and I think, oh, I wish I'd said something different. I wish I'd worded it differently. I wish I'd given that person more time. I wish I hadn't been so rushed in whatever it was. You can only do your best based on the environment that you are working within. The other aspect of my job that I love is being able to do the newborn examinations or postnatal checks or whatever it is. I still get clinical as well. I love that part of this job, is that at least I do get some clinical and I get to still be patient facing, and I still get to look after patients and women and birthing people and families. And that's really wonderful. We've just recently had an infant feeding support group recently set up, and I walked in and it was all to do with sort of feedback that had come to try and improve patient support and patient feeding and everything that they needed postnatally. And walked into this group and the mums were supporting each other, and I just thought, this is what it's about. This is the positive change that, patient feedback has provided, that staff feedback has provided. And to see that in practice amongst all of the teams that are working hard to deliver this is just, it's amazing. There is nothing like that feeling. But the highs of midwifery are absolutely, there's nothing that beats it. There is absolutely nothing that can excel on that. It is hands down one of the best jobs from the absolute highs that we go through. And to be able to support women and birthing people, honestly, we are so privileged and so lucky. But the lows massively impact on every single aspect of your life. And they are incredibly challenging when they happen. And until the system's pressures are released a little bit better, and until the investment happens, where we are all working in environments at every single level, whether it's floor to higher level, until that is addressed across the board, until that is addressed by governments, I just feel like midwives are being massively let down, and so therefore women are being let down too.